Hello. It's my great pleasure to introduce a very good friend of mine, Dr. Ron DeStefano. We know each other for, I believe, 35 years. Ron is well-known, very distinguished psychologist and psychotherapist. He lives in Northern California, and he is very popular among psychologists and public. He is not only a very distinguished psychologist, but he has many, many other talents. We see his guitar next to him. So Ron has a wonderful and long career as a psychologist, psychotherapist. He worked with individuals, couples, and of course, he observed many, many very interesting people he dealt with, he spoke to. And I'd like to ask Ron about personal effectiveness. So perhaps you may notice something related to personal effectiveness. So Ron, how do you understand personal effectiveness? What is personal effectiveness for you? Would you please give us
So,
your
so
some
there's
insight?
there's the personal effectiveness
Right.
and professional, and it really, after over half a century, really is one. It's the same, I think. And when you think about effectiveness, you think effects, results. What kind
Mhm.
of results are you going to get? And I find it's really important to enjoy. I think enjoyment is really engaging for us and for others, and especially enjoying the moment. How can we
Mm.
make this moment precious and special? We all have our redundancies that we say things over and over again to ourselves or others, but we have the most fun, I think, when we're really being present in the moment and engaging in improv, just
Mm.
improvisational, where
Right.
when you and I in our relationship or any relationship, where we're having a conversation and I find myself saying and thinking things that I've never said and thought before, because in some ways you are influencing me synergistically and we are co-creating something that's
Mhm.
special. Now, as a family psychologist, as I see it as an ecologist of intimacy with couples and families for over half a century, that's my context for working in.
Mhm.
What's personally effective for other people, especially in terms of how they spend their time, most of mine is very social, you know,
Mhm.
and with others. If other people are doing solo jobs or tasks, um, how they're relating and having fun and getting absorbed and being present with whatever they're doing, whatever that thing is or method, whatever is, I think really, really important because um, when we're really being effective with others and ourselves, we're really being present and we're, I think it's important to feel moved
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
that there's a sense of movement in ourselves and the other is moving also. And I know,
Mm.
Alice, you're an expert in so many things, but one of the things that you've been an expert on in the earlier books and research was in motivation.
Right.
So part of it is like, how do you and how do we move ourselves? How do we move others in a certain direction where
Right.
they feel more uh, more productive, more effective. Now, effective, it's interesting. I often think and say repetition is the mother of learning.
Mm.
The more we do something, the more we do it, whether it's
Mhm.
something that's a bad habit or a good habit. It's repetition is the mother of learning. The more we do it, the more we do it. And when you think of that, well, that's kind of the basis of experience. that we
Mhm.
have experience. You have so many decades of experience, and I do, and that experience gives us a certain competence and a confidence and
Mhm.
a and confidence. Actually, confidence is something we get after we do something and it works, not before. We could
Mhm.
try to be confident, but when I was younger and just learning, and you know I wasn't confident because I didn't really have the chops yet. I didn't really know how to make things work. And now I have a real good sense of what works and doesn't with others and myself and my family at this point. And it's a delight and a joy. And I wish I learned all this earlier, but it took some
Right.
time.
Well, Ron, can I just clarify one thing?
Yeah,
Well, first of all, thank you very much. That's a very interesting, some ideas. You linked personal effectiveness and professional effectiveness. So it is a perhaps in a wider sense, it's the same phenomenon. But imagine that I have a passion, I have some hobby, I like to do something, I enjoy it, I am happy with it. But in professional term, I have a boring work. I need to be effective, but it is not very interesting for me. It might be for some people, they could see their life quite in different dimension. One is the thing they enjoy, but it is not their professional work. The other thing is professional work, but it is boring, it is not much enjoyment. How to be effective even in these kinds of area? What would be your opinion?
I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, but I spent many, many years ago in Plum Village with Thich Nhat Hanh when he
Right.
was living in exile in France. And he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King during the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
And we were talking and laughing with each other one day about sitting and meditating and being bored. And then someone got the idea to make T-shirts that said, "Boredom is very interesting." Basically, if you really look, instead of getting caught up in our redundant thoughts, oh, I don't like this, I hate doing this, and my heart goes out to people who have really redundant jobs, who have to be on an assembly line in a factory doing something every day. But even there, what you notice, um, there's other people around. They're talking, they're laughing, they're doing stuff, they're interacting with each other, they're doing things to have the moment be more pleasurable, and hopefully getting some kind of meaning and purpose out of, wow, what I just did there. Look at that. There's beauty in that. it's
Mhm.
it's it's crafted beautifully. That's a really good one. There's still a sense of accomplishment that we can find and not get caught up in the redundancy of our thought. It's like, I once knew this incredible architect and designer, John Wheatman. And John died when he was like, I don't know, 99 or 100. And he worked way into his 80s. And he would often walk around like, he'd walk into a house that he had to design. And he said, I walk in and I look through the eyes of a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. And when I walk in this room, where do my eyes go? And is that the most important and precious thing to this person who has this house? That where you want your eyes and others' eyes to go? What's really important to you? What's the most precious, beautiful thing that you want to look at? And doing that with like the eyes of a 3 or 4-year-old is very refreshing. And I think that's, the antidote to boredom is refreshment. And
Mhm.
refreshment is always in the present now and not thinking and saying what you did yesterday and last year.
Right.
It's really creative play also. And there's something I hadn't said yet that I wanted to go back to, which
Yeah,
is this
please.
notion of experience. Because I was saying that repetition is the mother of learning, and the more you do something, the more you do it. Um, but in a gathering experience, what I notice is the truth, I think, is that whatever good methods, sensibilities, judgments we have comes from experience.
Hmm. Hmm.
And experience often comes from earlier bad judgment, things that did not work. And we learn what works and not by learning, oops, that didn't work. And all right, take two, all right, take three. And the
Right.
other thing I find about effectiveness in my life, in my world, with my family and my friends, and in every way, in my relationship to health and everything, is um, is being tenacious. You know, that there's a persistence. And when I'm working with a couple or a family, um, I don't give up on them. If they
Mm.
don't give up, I don't give up.
Mm.
And we keep, well, all right, that didn't work. But each time you try something, if it works, you celebrate. Yay, it worked. If it doesn't work, it's feedback. Oh,
Mm.
okay. So now we know that that doesn't work. So what do we have to now take into consideration, giving what we know doesn't work? And there's a process and a creative co-creation in that that continues to be creative and playful with whatever's happening, whatever the reality is. Um, I also think that if something is not working, sometimes it's important to break whatever you're doing or thinking about doing into smaller steps,
Mhm, mhm.
so that we never take a step longer than our leg.
Right.
Right?
Good.
You don't want to fall. So you take steps, but what's doable? If it's too far reach, it's not doable. Well, then you bring it on in, you know.
Okay.
So I think those are some of the things. And
Can I
I,
have one more question?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
You know, we are discussing personal effectiveness, but in fact, a human being, as we know, is a social animal. We are always in some social context, relationship, interaction, communication is very much important for us as an individual. No individual exists without social interaction, social contact. So, on the one hand, we're discussing personal effectiveness, but in fact, there is no such a thing like isolated individual. We are always in relationship context. So how could we combine these two perspectives, social, relational, and individual, in
yeah.
terms of effectiveness?
You know, well, I'll just go here a little bit. You know that I'm writing a book about a method I've used for over 30 years in my practice. And in it, I say, like, you could imagine that every human being has three selves. They're, they're the me, myself, and I. So the me is the smallest part of us. It's constricted and it's feels like a helpless and childless, often a victim. And when we're going through our worst times, we're like in a fetal position. And if I and somebody I'm working with, if we're both in our me's It's like trying to have a conversation like this. Well, you hurt me, you did that to me, and I wouldn't have done that if you didn't me. And that's where all the fighting and conflict and tension between two people and two countries come from.
Right.
It's all the most base part of what's being a human being, which is animal survival, fight, flight, or freeze. There's nothing creative in the baby me,
Mm.
in myself, or if someone else is in their me. The best thing you can do is time out. Let's go calm down. Let's go get in a bigger state of mind so we can come back and talk eye to eye. And you are different,
Right.
I'm different, but when we're talking eye to eye, we can have a very fascinating, interesting conversation. And you could say, well, Ron, this is my experience. And I say, really? Wow, that's so weird and different than mine. Tell me more. I want to understand that. So there's a sense of the differences are fascinating and curious, not a problem. It's okay we don't agree. In fact, so much of the world is like that. It's like, how do we respect and listen to our differences and see if we can, if we're going to work together, do something together, how do we get what you're good at, what I'm good at? How do we blend that together in a creative, playful composition or work of art that we have not done before? But
Mm.
that's where not only the synergy comes in, but a sense of empathy for the other is so damn important because we are interdependent. We are not independent. You're
Right.
right. My
Absolutely.
survival depends on your survival. Your survival depends on mine. The more that we are able to think like that, the more we could team up and we confront the challenges of try not to have wars and to confront climate change and all
Right.
the other threats that are in the world, that we can like team up together, and it brings out more of each of us. And that's the beauty. And that's the beauty of the word that I haven't said yet, but I could have begun with. And I'm Northern California, so but it's about love. It's about love.
Right. Right.
I
So,
love my family. I love the family and the couples I work with. And if somebody comes in that is obnoxious, personally, spiritually, relational wise, it is my mission to see them and view them in a way as lovable.
right. So
And
that
as
means,
they do, they get more lovable.
great. Well, that's wonderful. So that means we need to consider personal effectiveness with interpersonal effectiveness, with social effectiveness,
Absolutely.
so interhuman effectiveness, right?
Yeah.
Okay, one more question, if I may ask you, please. I know that you perhaps don't like to give many advices to other people. You tend to listen and prefer them to solve their own problem with your help, but not direct advice. Maybe, if I'm right. But in this case, would you please, if possible, give us or some our viewers one maybe advice on improving the personal effectiveness? What would
Absolutely.
you? Yes, please.
And it is all about advice. And I'll tell you about this. First,
Right.
actually, just back it up a moment. I think it's um and you're good at this. You're really good at this, Alisher, but I think it's a real gift to know what questions to ask yourself and other people. Because in the questions implicitly are often the answers.
Mhm.
So, and I do give advice, but
Oh,
I don't give the key thing, whether it's professionally or just as with a friend or family member. I love what Benjamin Franklin said, so many wise aphorisms and things. And one of them was, um, so far, advice has never hurt anyone because no one ever listens to advice. So giving advice unsolicited to someone is not personally or interpersonally effective.
Right.
So it's a whole different thing if you ask permission first. If I say to my 20-year-old son or my 23-year-old son, well, I'm not you, but would you like to know what I think I might do if I were you in this situation? And if they say yes, then I tell them. And if they say no, I respect that. And I say, well, you're always going to have to wonder then, you come up with your own thing and wish you well. So a lot of us grow up with authority, good meaning authority, parents, teachers, clergy, telling you what you should do and not do. And it feels so, it shrinks us. What we want is, how do you expand people into their bigger self and their higher self and invite them to do that? And I think the invitational thing is, first you ask for permission. I'd like to tell you what I would do if you're interested in hearing it. Those kind of preface things are really important. I see a lot of people just start telling everybody, oh, well, that's happening, well, they should do this, they should do that.
You should
This
do it.
couple, 20 years together, 30 years together, they've seen the worst, they had the worst fights, they had the most blissful moments, and somebody's going to give a few sentences of what they should do. Come on. That is so disrespectful of the complex reality that we live in us and between us. Family, I'm a family psychologist. Family brings out heaven on earth and hell on earth, depending on the moment of what's going on at any given moment between us, our relations, health, worry. Oftentimes, as a parent, where there's love, there's worry. We worry about others. I worry about others a lot more than I worry about myself. I worry about my kids more than me. And that's the way I think it should be.
Yeah. So, on behalf of our viewers, please, would you give us one advice on improving our personal effectiveness? We are ready. We want you to tell.
Okay, so on top of two things. The first thing is asking permission to give advice before just going and giving advice, like I already said.
Yeah.
But
Permission is given.
one of the things I've been looking at a lot recently, especially in terms of couples, and two people, it's almost like a design flaw that our eyes go out. If there's a problem, it must be you, Alisher. It must be because of you. So there's two aspects of this I want to say.
Right.
I ask people, notice whenever there's a problem, first notice you are always there. Not as a
Good.
blame or accusation, but as an empowerment that maybe you're doing and not doing something that you're blind to, that you don't see.
Right.
The corollary is, whenever there's a problem, most of us have to have at least one other person help us have it. So that also is interdependent. So here's the kicker. Those of you that are in relationship out there, in a couple, in a marriage, whatever, try this. Go to your beloved and say, sweetie, I'm really trying to be the best person I can be, the most special, the most emotionally intelligent, the most spiritual, the most loving person I can be. I really want to grow myself. But I think I have blind spots that you see and that I don't. Would you please be very gentle? Tell me the truth, tender truths. And I'll do my best not to get defensive. I'll just listen.
Mhm.
Please tell me what you think my blind spots are. I'll reflect on them and I'll try to do something to to change them or to improve them in some way. But please be gentle. Don't be angry. Watch your tone. I don't
Mhm.
want to be defensive, so don't make it like an attack. Oh, you always do this. Please, I'm open-hearted, open-eared, tender truth. You say that to your beloved, their jaw will drop. Because for years they've been trying to have you see this and look at that, but instead you're defending and they're getting offensive and you're arguing, and we can't talk about that. It doesn't go anywhere. So how about that one?
Wonderful. It's great. Uh, we always tend to see the source of problem in someone else. So we blame usually someone, even for our fault. But perhaps it's wise not just to blame ourselves, but to be open, reflect on ourselves, and see that very often the sink is within us.
Well, along those lines, so many couples therapists and systems therapists often suggest to people, don't start the sentence with you. You do this, you didn't do this, you
Right.
start it with I. This is the power.
Mm.
In terms of what changes, besides tell me about my blind spots that I don't see, instead of you, and having it be defense and offense, and people are not on the same team, the more that people could say, all right, let's change it. I do this, I didn't do this, I'm sorry about this, I'll try to work on this. Oh, no, no, it's not all your fault. I shouldn't have said that. I did this. Once it starts going to I rather than you, it's a whole new wonderful
Yeah,
relationship
yeah.
that
Right,
people
right,
have. It's so much easier to then express love because
right.
we withhold love when we're hurt. I don't want to say I still love you, but I'm not going to express it because I'm hurt. And in hurt, we either then get angry, and cold anger, I turn my back, or hot anger, or we get bummed, get sad, we get depressed. Oh, you hurt me. So the antidote to that is getting empowered. My I pointing the finger at myself, your I doing that. We are working on this together. We are being a loving team.
Well, Aaron, it's wonderful. It's very interesting, very inspiring, and it's always great to talk to you. I always very much enjoy our conversation. You're a wonderful person, and thank you so much for your time,
I
reflections.
and I need to say something about you, Alisher, please, before we say goodbye. Because
Right.
you've been like one of my best friends since we met in Tashkent,
Thank
back in what was it, 88, I think, or something. You are so full of heart, you are so full of creativity, and you are not only personally effective, but I am in awe of all that you do. You are so much more you're so prolific and you're so productive in a way that I'm not. I
No.
enjoy watching the birds and bees and, oh, look at the flowers, and I'll stay there for a while.
That's the
You
highest level of effectiveness.
So,
Well,
and
anyway,
even this channel, even doing this on top of the books you write, the workshops you give, the teaching you give around the world, it's pretty amazing. And I'm a big fan of yours, Alisher.
thank you
So,
so much. Thank you very much,
my
Ron.
friend.
I hope we will meet many more times in this
Okay,
channel.
it's fun. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.